Astrology of Terrible Things is back.
Woo!
This is the podcast where we bring you stories of terrible things that have happened. And importantly, we delve into the astrology of that terrible thing to try and figure out why bad things happen. Important note, this podcast comes with all the trigger warnings. We talk about amusement park disasters, serial killers, catastrophic accidents, and all these sorts of events that usually result in people dying. And if any of that sounds like something you don't want to hear about, then please do not listen to this show. I'm your host, Carly Heath, and I'm a writer in Los Angeles, and I'm here with our co-host, our new co-host, Emily Simile, a teacher and TikToker who single-handedly revived this podcast with her Astrology of Terrible Things TikTok series, which can be found on TikTok at Emily Simile. Hello and welcome, Emily.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. Yay.
And this is going to be the first time that I'm going to show you a chart of a terrible event. You have to guess what happened during the event, but you have never seen the chart before. Your TikToks, you usually know what happens because you find them yourself and you describe them as if you don't know. But this time you actually do not know what happened. And I'm going to share.
I'm very excited. I've been wanting, I told my girlfriend who isn't as familiar with astrology stuff, I'm like, I wish that I could just play a little game where I don't know what's going on and I could try to guess. And look, now we're getting to play the game. So
I know if this could be a game show, like a televised network game show, I feel like it would be so popular because one, it's just it proves that astrology works and it also is really fun.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm going to have fun watching you guess and I'm going to be
and I discovered the podcast actually because shout out to my therapist. She also really likes astrology and we just happened to be talking about how I've been learning a lot more about mundane astrology recently. And she had just come across the Donner Party episode that you had recorded. And she told me to go check out the podcast. And then I listened to all the episodes and I was like, I want more. And there hadn't been an episode since 2023. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start making some TikToks with this idea in mind. And people have been engaging with it and having a lot of fun. And so I'm really excited to
I'm so glad it. I know. And it's so kismet and weird how I found you. Cause I randomly saw oh, wow, this podcast is blowing up all of a sudden. I hadn't updated it since 2023 because my
what's
co-host,
going on?
I know my co-host in 2023, she just couldn't do it anymore. She didn't have the time. Gaza happened and I was so traumatized by genocide. I was doing protests and doing street art and I was the podcast just doesn't seem important right now. And I mean, that's still going on. So that's terrible. But you single-handedly inspired me to get back to it because it obviously has touched a lot of people and means something. And maybe now to prepare us for 2026. What year are we?
Right.
People are going to need to make peace with the fact that terrible things happen and astrology can give us some guidance towards
and kind of help us maybe prepare for some of the things that are probably going to be happening in 2026, probably some more terrible astrology. There have been plenty of terrible astrological events in 2025. And there will continue to be terrible astrological things and not terrible things, but a lot of terrible things.
But I never asked you, how did your therapist find the podcast?
I think she was just really getting into the Donner Party. And I think that she literally was I asked her, I was like, how did you find this? She was like, I was going down a rabbit hole about the Donner Party. And I just thought that it was cool that there happened to be an episode where they talk about the astrology going on then. And she was like, I had only listened to that one episode. So it's so funny that just the coincidence.
And she must have thought it was a weird episode because we talk about aliens and we also talk about the Donner Party. And so I appreciate her.
I think it was up her alley. I think that, and it was up my alley too. I loved it. So
let's briefly talk about 2026 before we get into the charts. A lot of terrible things are going to happen this year. in your like too long didn't read words, describe 2026 from an astrological point of view.
Yeah. So pretty much all of the outer planets are moving or have moved into new signs. And so it's like a really, really big shift going on. And I feel like 2025 has kind of felt like a lot of things building up. It's like this kind of feels like the year before things kind of start to change. And with change comes a lot of difficult things, like how Uranus is moving into Gemini in April. And then there's going to
like huge from like
to like
American
the Revolutionary
history.
War.
Yeah.
The like World War II, the Civil War.
Yeah. And basically, this is the first time after World War II. Sorry to interrupt, but this is the first time after World War II that Uranus is entering Gemini. So this is going to be our grandparents, great grandparents experienced this, but our parents didn't experience this. And it's always associated with war.
Yes, especially with the Uranus-Mars conjunction going exact on the 4th of July.
I know.
Like, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. But I think, like we've been talking about, like with all of the difficult things and all the difficult change, we're moving on to something better. But it is going to be difficult for a while.
You're so optimistic.
That's what I have to say. That's what I have to say.
But it's kind of like, okay, Uranus in Gemini, Mars Uranus conjunction in Gemini, but that's not all. We're also getting the Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries. The last time that happened was 1989, before you were born. The Berlin Wall fell, which I was like 8 when that happened. It was a big deal. I have a piece of the Berlin Wall.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And also it's so literal with like Saturn Neptune conjunction, the dissolving of boundaries, literally the Berlin Wall falling, a boundary being taken down. There's going to be a lot of restructuring of and a lot of fear, I think. Fear mongering, we're already seeing that. Yeah.
And as I said, Berlin Wall fell, my cat started sneezing. So if that's synchronicity, but also that was the beginning of the 2-year period that would end with the Soviet Union collapsing. It was also the time moment of the Exxon Valdez oil spill, which was a huge, huge deal when I was 8 years old. And it was everyone's first time realizing the environment is important, actually. And for a brief little period, people were like all about the environment and Earth Day and all of that. And then I feel like we've gotten away from that. So maybe people might get back into the environment.
Yeah, I definitely think also with the transition from Pisces into Aries, I feel like maybe all of these like ideas and stuff that we've been having are going to kind of come into actual more like concrete plans, action plans, maybe seeing some actual change and not just kind of like ideas sort of thing. So I don't know. I'm also a Pisces rising, so I have to be optimistic. So
you have had you've had Neptune in Pisces since 2011. So since your teenage years and all of your adult years, your identity has been forming with Neptune in Pisces.
Definitely. Yeah, especially I think I feel a lot more sure of myself now that the conjunction is moving out of my first house and into my second house. A little bit worried about my finances, but that's okay. As a 25-year-old, I feel like we're all worried about our finances. And you know, there's definitely been a lot of things that I feel like I've learned about myself and like my identity, and also figuring out how I want to present myself physically to the world. And it's also like all of these changes are happening right around the time that I came out to my family as lesbian, and I like realized that I was gay, right? So like, it's like I'm seeing like huge changes for me as all of these things are going through new signs and the transitions and everything. And I definitely think that Saturn and Neptune moving out of my first house, like right as I have come out, it's kind of like, wow, I don't have to like hide that part of myself anymore, which is like so beautiful. Yeah, love that. Okay. Now I just have to get my shit together with my finances. So worried about that, but that'll be okay.
Well, it's interesting that Neptune in Aries is often associated with the mythologizing and love of outlaws and lone
We're already seeing that a little bit. Like there's definitely with like Luigi Mangione, for example. Ooh, interesting.
Are you going to take up highway robbery?
That's a good question. Maybe I'll start like some sort of like multi-level marketing scheme, start scamming people. No, I really hope not. I don't think that's hopefully not. Hopefully I don't get scammed.
Yes.
I don't know.
Actually, that, Neptune in your second house, that's totally a scam type of thing. And
gosh. Oh, okay. Don't scare me with that. But also, like we've said, it's like helping prepare for that.
Yeah.
So,
set up boundaries. Always check if you get a strange email.
Don't click on any links.
And back in like when I was growing up, it was the Nigerian prince scam, and
yes,
now the scams are, we have a job for you. We have,
no, you're so right.
And
there are, I feel like scams are getting a lot more advanced. Like, my parents, I feel like wouldn't have fallen for things and like 10 years ago, but now, I mean, especially also with AI, scams are going to get a lot more convincing. And I feel like generative AI is going to continue to become more realistic, and it's going to be hard to figure out what's real and what's not real sort of thing, which I feel like is also very like Aquarius, Pluto, sort of vibes. And also with Gemini, Uranus happening, probably a lot of like technological like advancements in terms of like transportation and stuff too. I don't know. I'm interested to see how things change in a bunch of different areas.
Yeah.
In 2026.
And it's like either we're going to change or we are going to, in the words of Austin Coppock, misery maxing.
Yeah.
He said that phrase and I love that phrase for 2026. It's misery maxing. It's giving your friend who has a shitty relationship and a shitty job, and you tell them, you're like, you have to quit. You have to dump your boyfriend. You have to quit your job. And they're like, no. And you just watch them get more and more miserable as the transits occur. And it's like, you could either quit the miserable thing and it'll be miserable while you're going through the transition to get to the new thing, but at least you're getting to the new thing. Right now, you're just going to be miserable and not make any change and not have any hope for a better future. So 2026 is the year to make the change now. Get out of
the
don't, quit your job that you hate. If you have a family member who's stressing you out, cut them off. Like now is the time to do the thing that you got to do, even though it's hard, because it's going to get worse.
And it's like, what's scarier, the unknown of moving on or the staying in the miserable situation sort of thing? Because I definitely have been there. Where I have wanted to stay in the miserable familiar. And I was really scared of like, well, what's going to happen if I leave this?
It's always
a lot of good things can happen. A lot of better things. A lot of better things can happen.
It's always better when you leave. At least you're getting an opportunity for something different to come in.
Definitely.
Okay, let's get into the charts.
Yay.
The fun part. And I'm sharing on the screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, I'll describe it for the podcast only listeners. It's a Aquarius rising chart. 12 degrees Aquarius is the ascendant, almost nearly conjunct the south node at 11 degrees Aquarius. So you might be asking, well, what's the chart ruler doing? Saturn, the chart ruler, is in the 12th house, which is Capricorn retrograde. So this is a night chart. and the sun is in Taurus in the 4th house. Since this is a night chart, the most malefic planet is Saturn in the 12th house. Since this is a night chart, the most benefic planet is actually Venus, and the most benefic planet is Venus in Aries, where Venus does not do well, and Aries is the 3rd house. And so you might be wondering, what's Mars doing? Mars is in the 2nd house, which is Pisces, and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is in the 6th house, where Cancer is, in Cancer in the 6th house. And so what's Cancer's ruler doing? The moon is in the 1st house, at 6 degrees of Aquarius. And if we are in, did I do all the planets? Oh, and it's a Mercury retrograde in the 4th house in Taurus. And if we want to get into outer planets, eventually we're going to do hard mode where we take off the outer planets. But for now, this is a Pluto in Scorpio. So Pluto in the 10th house, and a very kind of close co-presence between Uranus and Neptune in the 12th house in Capricorn. And that is the chart. Venus is making a square to Neptune, is applying to a square with Neptune. So Venus is in the 3rd house, making a square to Neptune in the 12th. And that's also kind of making a loose square to Uranus as well. And Jupiter is opposite Uranus exactly. Jupiter in the 6th house, opposite Uranus in the 12th house.
This is so interesting. Okay.
What are your thoughts on the 1st house and the Saturn of it all?
So I noticed, so it's a Capricorn Saturn, and it's retrograde in the 12th house, making a trine to the sun.
But it's an exact trine to the sun.
Yes. Saturn in the 12th house is making me think of some sort of like hidden structure, something possibly. And I mean, it's Saturn in Capricorn, so it likes to be here. This is like a more powerful Saturn. Well,
think of what are the significations of the 12th house? Let's list those for us.
Yes. Let's think about captivity and escapism and things that are happening behind the scenes, like altered states of consciousness, sort of thing. So we have that going on, and
and it's ruling the 1st house.
Yes, ruling the 1st house,
and the ascendant conjunct the south node of it all.
I'm actually not super familiar with the nodes. I feel like that's something that I need to be learning next. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Don't stress out too much about it, because the other planets all are participating here too.
Yes.
Especially if you look at the malefics and even the benefics.
Yeah. So with this Saturn being the greatest malefic in the chart, I am with Saturn in the 12th house, isolation in some way, I feel like is a part of this. And
what are some significations of Saturn?
Saturn is restriction. It's responsibility and rules. Saturn is structures. And whenever it's, sometimes I feel like I'm slow.
Hey, no, take your time. Take your time. We have all over the world, and I can edit this, to if you take a lot of time, I can just cut to the good
fill
part.
in the gaps. Yeah. Some sort, definitely confinement of some kind, some sort of structure that's keeping people in captivity. And I mean, I feel like it's something that has been here for a long time as well, because it's in Capricorn and Saturn ruling over time. And then, so let's go to
Have you ever heard of, what institutions are associated with?
Prisons and asylums and hospitals.
Hospitals are 12th house too.
Yeah. So definitely I was thinking kind of captivity, definitely like something related to like forced imprisonment. This also, with it being in retrograde, maybe it could be somebody like trying to escape in some way, and escape from some sort of structure.
And something to think about is, what does Saturn do when it's in its highest, doing the most good, versus what does Saturn do when it's doing the most bad, which is usually, it tends to do the most bad in a night chart, and it tends to do the most bad when it's retrograde.
Yes. Okay. So in a night chart, it's like destruction. It's building things, like it's not building things. It's taking things apart. It's restructuring. It's destroying of structures, especially with Uranus and Neptune in here as well. It's kind of like unexpected, something maybe even like unpreventable. With Uranus and Neptune, and they're both retrograde. So we have so many retrograde things happening here, and they're making the opposition to Jupiter, but it's Jupiter in a night chart. So it's not as strong, but Jupiter likes to be in, Cancer, and it's conjunct Chiron.
But it's in the 6th house.
But it's in the 6th house. So it's like related to service and physical ailments and the underprivileged. It could also be related to animals, especially with like the relation to captivity, as well. Like there could be animals in captivity here. But with it being in Cancer and Jupiter, where's the moon? So then the moon is in the 1st house in Aquarius. So, I mean, like there could be some sort of like families in captivity, families in danger here, underprivileged families who might need help in some way, with it being ruled by the Aquarius moon in the 1st house. And so, I mean, like these people have probably been in captivity for quite some time. And this, hopefully this is like some sort of an escape. I don't know. I don't know if this is actually...
It's a terrible thing.
It is a terrible thing. Okay.
It's a terrible thing.
I'm like, no, okay. I'm like, my Pisces, like, I'm like, okay, there's good things that could happen here. No. Okay. This is the astrology of terrible things. With Venus in the 3rd house. So, okay. So think this is probably... And okay, ready? Venus in the 3rd house in Aries. This kind of feels like a community of people, community of families in captivity. But maybe this is like some sort of cult situation, I'm feeling like, because with the 3rd house of the local community being ruled by Aries being ruled by Mars, like this is kind of a community, even though Venus is here and it's the greatest benefic, it still feels like a community of people who are like competitive with each other. But with Venus here, it could be a group of competitive women, mothers, because of all the Cancer stuff as well. And with the Pisces 2nd house Mars ruling over that 3rd house, and it's Mars in a night chart. So it's maybe these people in captivity are like being used to like make money of some kind. Like they're
something to think about is to really heavily think about the Saturn of it all. Are you familiar with the final dispositor idea,
where you
find out what is the planet that is basically ruling all the other planets?
Yes. Okay. So then we would go from Aries, Venus is ruled by the Pisces, Mars. Pisces, Mars is ruled by Cancer, Jupiter. Cancer, Jupiter is ruled by the Aquarius moon. Aquarius moon is ruled by the Saturn. Okay. Yeah. So Saturn is the final depositor here, and it's the chart ruler. Okay. Saturn in the 12th house. Okay. So so
feel free to go through listing all the Saturn things, all the bad Saturn things.
I'm just thinking of like destruction and death, right? Endings.
And if you want to, if you want a little like look at what's happening as far as death goes in this chart, what's the planet that rules the death house in this?
So then the 8th house of death being ruled by Virgo, with Virgo being ruled by Mercury retrograde and Taurus in the 4th house. So definitely like captivity. There's a bunch of people who are in some sort of community, and probably this community is being like destroyed in some way. There's like probably this community is being like there's a community of people being destroyed in some way, and I feel like the people who are here are getting like hurt physically. And they're more innocent people, like families, mothers, children. I don't know what this is specifically, but I mean, like, I feel like it's a group of people, a community that of like-minded people, probably people who aren't feeling like, I feel like they're probably not doing harm themselves, but like this is harm done to a community. And then, but it is also inherently like a more competitive, like a community with like lots of like competition and infighting and maybe like survival of the fittest sort of thing.
What do you think is the planet that is doing the most harm to?
Saturn would be doing the most harm, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of feels like forced isolation and separation of families, like families being torn apart. I don't know.
Are you ready for me to tell you what this is?
I think I'm ready for you to tell me what it is, because I think that those are the themes that I'm getting. And also maybe if we look at the 10th house, sorry.
Oh yeah, I'll put it back up. Hold on.
With like the 10th house Pluto. So like,
what are some Pluto words?
Pluto is like power. It is endings. Especially with it being in the 10th house, like I'm thinking like this is a powerful sort of government structure that could be going through like some significant change, or could be,
there's a really good phrase that's associated with Pluto. Have you ever heard of it? The phrase, I think it's Chris Brennan that uses it a lot. Maybe Adam Allen Boss uses it a lot too.
What is it?
Pluto's the planet that makes small things big and big things small.
Ooh, I like that. Small things big and big things small. So I don't know. I feel like my brain is like going to so many different places, and I don't know.
Okay, I mean, so let's round up maybe your top 10 keywords associated with this.
Top 10 keywords would be captivity, forced isolation, a competitive community, like mothers, children, probably being like isolated and killed and torn apart, and like forced into maybe even like survival situations. And it's like isolation and captivity is like a big part of this. Isolation, captivity, competition amongst people who aren't really doing anything wrong. They just are trying to survive, it seems. Yeah. Okay. We'll round it off there.
Okay. I think you got some words right. I think you might have gotten hung up on the Mars of it and the competition, because not really what's happening here. And I think because Saturn is so heavy in this chart, I think if you focus a little bit more on the Saturn of it, you probably would have gotten there. Early on, you did say a good word earlier on. I didn't want to give anything away. But that was hospitals that you said.
Oh yeah.
I think you're right on as far as a community goes.
So there's a lot of sick people. Is that true? I mean, like with there's Jupiter in the 6th house.
One sick person.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. Wait, do I know what this is? Okay, wait. Tell me. Okay.
And I think we should almost play 20 questions. Maybe you're allowed to ask like 5 questions in the future.
Yeah.
And I can give you like a hint. So yeah, one sick person. And if you focus on the Saturn of it all, you'll see that this is, Saturn in a night chart, retrograde in the 12th house, hospitals, time. The time is a big word associated with Saturn, and not coming to the hospital soon enough.
Like ignoring
outcome.
Oh, yes, like
the ascendant right on the South Node. So the South Node is also an ending sort of thing. The Jupiter, the moon in the 1st house being ruled by Jupiter, the spreading of infection.
Mm-hmm.
And
that the moon in the first house ruled by Saturn.
And this is the moon in the first house. Sorry, the Jupiter in the sixth house. That's what I meant to say. The Jupiter in the sixth house of illness being ruled by the moon in the first house. So thinking of it as Jupiter, as much as we think of it as the good, helpful planet, the truth of the fact is that Jupiter will not help you out if you are a night chart. Jupiter can make things worse if you're a night chart. So
Jupiter is like
Jupiter expands.
Excess.
So Jupiter in the sixth house is growing the illness, the misfortune. And at night, you're a night chart. Jupiter is growing the badness. And okay, I guess I should go ahead and say this. And there is a Jupiter element too, in that this person grew up in the Christian Science religion. And so never went to doctors, never went to a hospital. And even though he would eventually say, I'm not a Christian Scientist anymore, the ingrained like childhood upbringing of distrusting doctors, of not going to, and not wanting to be a bother, not going to hospitals, ended up resulting in this person's death. And so I will get to it. This is, I don't want to be smiling while I say this. This is a very sad chart. This is the chart of the death of Jim Henson, who is the creator of the Muppets.
Oh my gosh.
And when he died, his children were there. His ex-wife, who is separated from him, was there. And it sent shockwaves through all of his staff and his employees because they had no idea he was sick. He had like a little bit of a seemed like a cold or something. And then suddenly he's dead. And so when you talk about destroying communities, destroying his communities of artists and creators who were working for him, just his family, he had a big family, definitely devastating to them. And I
definitely see more of the fourth house kind of coming out here. Like he died at home.
And it was a big old, no, he was in the hospital.
He was in the hospital.
So
but like dying with family around.
Yeah. And he was so delayed getting to the hospital that they weren't able to, if he'd gotten there even a few hours earlier, they could have given him a shot of penicillin and he probably would have had his life saved. But because he'd never gone to the hospital before, the idea of going to the hospital for a cold was weak, because he'd also never really been sick before. So it seemed so strange to him to do that. So I'll go ahead and tell this really terrible story, but I think that the story tells us a lot. I learned a lot looking at this chart and looking at the whole progress of his sickness through the astrological lens, because it really taught me that if you're a night chart, Jupiter will not help you. If anything, Jupiter will make things worse. And
as a night chart with my Jupiter being my chart ruler, conjunct Saturn. Jupiter doesn't make, I mean, I love Jupiter, but she doesn't always make things easier.
And especially if, think about Jupiter can be the religion that instead of giving you the truth and giving you helpful information, the bad religion that is your self-undoing. Jupiter, like I said, expanding diseases, expanding illness, expanding the things that you don't want to be expanded, like cancer and things like that. So Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets, died Wednesday, May 16th, 1990 at 1:21 a.m. after 2 cardiac arrests following a sudden bacterial infection. He was only 53 years old and died the same day as Sammy Davis Jr., who was born December 8th, 1925. So May 16th, 1990 was a weird day in the news because it was like, oh, Jim Henson died. What? And then, Sammy Davis Jr. died. So Jim Henson's illness started with a infection in his throat. Guess how Sammy Davis Jr. died?
An infection in his throat? Or was it like,
throat cancer.
Oh, interesting.
And do you remember where Mercury retrograde was in the chart?
In Taurus, and Taurus rules the throat. That is so interesting.
At the time of his death, Jim Henson was in his 6th house perfection year. And I should throw up Jim Henson's birth chart for you to look at. So Jim Henson is a Cancer rising. So he had Jupiter going through his 1st house. As a night chart, Jupiter through your 1st house means Jupiter is going to expand things in your body. For him, the ruler of his 1st house is the moon in his 7th house. And he was in his 6th house year. So Jupiter in his 6th house was his time lord. And also Jupiter in his 1st house was his time lord. And so it's really interesting. At the moment he died, Cancer was the 6th house. So that's his personal birth chart ascendant was in the 6th house of his death. Where Jupiter was, and Jupiter was also in the 6th house of the death chart. Fascinating. So again, and all this evidence that Jupiter is not a friend to our night chart people, and both well dignified Jupiters.
Because I was thinking, I like Sagittarius Jupiter in the 6th house. It's like, oh, well, he probably hasn't had a whole lot of health concerns before. But like this one in particular, it's like, because you said he had never been to the hospital before, he had generally had fine health up until this point. I feel like that would make a lot of sense for the night chart, Sagittarius Jupiter 6th house there.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating too, his 4th house of his birth chart has a Mercury retrograde and it's Venus ruled. And the 4th house of his death chart is also Venus ruled and has a Mercury retrograde in it.
And a sun in the 4th house as well.
And the sun in the 4th house as well. Amazing.
And then what degree was the Mars at in the death chart? Because that would be like close to his Saturn at least.
So in the death chart, the Mars was at 18 degrees of Pisces in his 2nd house.
And he has 18 degrees Saturn retrograde.
Yeah.
Natally. That's so interesting.
In the 9th house. I know, right?
Wow.
So Mars was conjunct with his Saturn, but also his death chart has Mars in the 2nd house and his birth chart has Mars in the 2nd house.
Very interesting.
There's
a lot of similarities in the birth chart and the death chart.
Yeah. Let's look at Jim Henson's life. So at the time of his death, Jim Henson, Henson did not go to the hospital right away, in part because of his Christian Science upbringing and because his wife believed it was likely due to his desire not to be a bother to people. In fact, he never, ever had a primary care doctor. His collaborator, Frank Oz, said the stress of Henson's recent deal to sell the Muppets to Disney likely led to his sickness and death. And the deal was reported to be worth $100 to $150 million. And it's really interesting that in his birth chart, Mars, which is the planet of stress, is in his 2nd house, which deals with money. And that in the 2nd house of his death chart, Mars is there.
Yes.
And that Mars is conjunct his natal Saturn.
Yeah. I also think with the 9th house being ruled by Pisces, another Jupiter ruled sign, with Saturn there in particular, I can understand like his religious
upbringing.
Yes. Yeah.
And being very restrictive religious upbringing and being something that later in life in the 1970s, he would be like, no, I'm not a Christian Scientist. I think that's not good. But still the way that Saturn sticks around. So even though he in his later life disavows Christian Science as a religion, the beliefs are so ingrained and Saturnian that he doesn't change his habits of like starting to go to a doctor or anything like that. And that
it's still going to negatively impact his health.
Yeah. And ultimately lead to his death. Upon his passing, Joan Gantz Cooney, the chairman and chief executive of Children's Television Workshop, which produced Sesame Street, said that Jim Henson was our era's Charlie Chaplin, Mae West, W.C. Fields, and Marx Brothers. And indeed, he drew from all of them to create a new art form that influenced popular culture around the world. Henson had homes in Manhattan, Connecticut, Malibu, California, and London, and was separated from his wife, but she was with him when he died. And he had 5 children. 4 of his children were with him when he died. He is born September 24th, 1936 in Greenville, Mississippi. And the chart I'm using has his birth time at 12:10 a.m. And it's from Janice Mackey and Jessica Saunders, the authors of the book Contemporary American Horoscopes. There is an alternate time that is 11:40 a.m., which has Sagittarius rising. To me, that chart doesn't seem to work. But I mean, it does because it's, but that would put,
it would make him a day chart instead of a night chart.
Yeah. And
so it would change a lot.
It would change a lot, and it would make it would make a Venus ruled 6th house, which does make sense because Venus was in her detriment in Aries when he died. I'm not sure, but I'm just putting it out there for anyone watching who's researching who might want to look more deeply into that. I found a quote that gives us insight into Henson's personality. His wife said that Henson is calm and unbelievably patient, so much so that you want to kick him. He's got a whole bunch of planets in Libra in the 4th house. And Libras, I have a stellium as well. Like Jim Henson, I have a stellium in Libra. I like to think I'm patient. I've taught many students. And I've learned to be very, very patient. And he's quoted as saying, "When I was young, my ambition was to be one of the people who made a difference. My hope is to leave the world a little better for my having been here," which is a very Libra, especially as a Libra, very Libra desire. And I think he succeeded. So good for him.
Definitely.
His father was an agronomist, which is an agricultural economist for the USDA. And Henson is the youngest of 2 children. They were raised Christian Scientists, a religion whose followers generally don't believe in seeing doctors when they get sick. In the late 1940s, the family moves to University Park, Maryland, near Washington, D.C., and then to Bethesda, Maryland, when they acquire their first television, which he said was the biggest event of his adolescence. And in 1951, he transfers to Northwestern High School when his high school closes. And as a teenager, Henson has severe acne. And because of his family's Christian Science beliefs, his mother doesn't let him get treatment for it, which leads to permanent scarring on his face and his decision to grow a beard. And you see that in the Pluto in the 1st house natally, and the 6th house Jupiter for good, Jupiter for bad. Very interesting. And, I will also say 1936, the year he was born, was a great year if you're going to be a television star, because Mary Tyler Moore so many television stars were born in 1936. Mary Tyler Moore, oh my God, I wrote them all down in my Google Doc and I decided not to open my Google Doc. Burt Reynolds, a lot of them. Look up 1936 and you'll see all the stars.
Chris, that's a musician.
Look up 1936 births. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yes. I'm like Pope Francis. I can't. I'm like, where are all the actors?
But television is going to be a really important part of his life. And if you've ever wanted to figure out what's television in astrology, Saturn Neptune is television. because 1936 is the year that the first Olympics are televised. Like 70 hours of the Olympics are televised. Now, people don't have television sets. So these are television sets that were put up around Berlin, and you could watch the Olympics on these television sets at different locations. It was also the year that NBC decided to start trying to do like a series, variety shows. Mm-hmm. These are viewed by people who are kind of early adopters and who like have RCA licenses. And it's like 200 people in 1936 are looking at these, but this is like a beginning year for television. Mm-hmm. And so when Jim Henson gets his first television in the 1940s, this is a time when, like I said, most people don't have television sets yet. Mm-hmm. In 1950, 9% of Americans have a television set in their home. So in the 40s, it was even less. So it was wealthy people who are early adopters of new technology are the folks getting television sets. So his family was one of those wealthy families who are early adopters. But eventually, by the end of the 1950s, a vast majority of Americans have television sets at that point. So his high school closes down, which I think is also a really interesting. It could either be a Neptune third house thing or a Saturn ninth house thing, depending on if you consider high school ninth house or third house. But he then goes to a new high school and joins the high school's puppetry club.
Fun.
And in the documentary about his life, Henson says, I don't remember ever seeing a puppet show when I was a kid, and I never had any puppets to play with. But for Henson, it's a creative outlet, and he has a weird sense of humor, and he can use puppets to express that sense of humor. And in the late spring of 1954, at 17 years old, Henson sees an ad for a television station that's looking for a puppeteer. And he begins working at WTOP TV on a Saturday morning on a Saturday morning children's show called the Junior Morning Show, but it's canceled 3 weeks later, which is also a very Saturn in the ninth house thing. It's like, oh, I have this opportunity. Oh, and it's canceled.
It's like, well, darn.
But also, what a weird opportunity. Hey, I have the opportunity to be a puppeteer on TV.
Yeah.
He continues working with puppets on another show called Roy Meacham's Saturday Show, but that show is also canceled in August of that year. Meacham, I know,
can't get a break.
Well, I think it's
he does eventually.
Yeah. With Saturn in your ninth house, it's like you got to try 3 times. So Meacham then refers Henson to the local NBC affiliate, RCTV, where he collaborates with his future spouse, Jane Nebbett, who he had met at a newly offered puppetry class while a studio arts major at University of Maryland College Park. Puppets. What is puppetry in astrology?
Yeah, I would look towards the 5th house. That's where my first instinct would be, I guess, with like creative output and things like that. But I would love to know. He doesn't have any planets in the 5th house right now, but
it's ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Leo, which is where I have my Mars, actually, and where our current president has his Mars. Boo. So Mars.
My therapist also has a Leo Mars. So it's not all Leo Marses are like.
Oh, and Harrison Ford has a Leo Mars as well.
Look at that.
So Leo Mars, we can be good, we can be evil. And hopefully mostly for good, because his sun is in Libra. So that is a Libra vibe, Leo happening there. Leo for good. And so
it's like using his creative output as like a way to make money as well. A little bit with the ruler of the 5th and the 2nd.
Yeah. But he meets his wife doing puppetry. He gets all these puppetry jobs, and he and his wife are offered a nightly segment and they create the show called Sam and Friends, which airs from 1955 to 1961 and is basically a 3 to 5 minute puppet show, which includes the forerunners to the Muppets and an early version of Kermit the Frog. During these years, Henson experiments with techniques that change the way puppetry is used in television, believing it's important to give the puppets life and sensitivity instead of wood carvings. These puppets are made of soft, flexible materials like foam, rubber, and fabric. And early versions of Kermit are made from his eyes are a tennis table ball cut in half, and fabric from a coat belonging to his mother, and denim from a pair of jeans to form the sleeve for the puppeteer's arm. On April 15th, 1956, Henson's older brother, Paul Ransom Henson Jr., a Navy airman, dies in a car crash in Pensacola, Florida. He's listed in the newspaper clipping as 33, but I think all the biography information says he was 23 at the time. And this is a really important moment for Henson because he kind of like realizes he could die at any time like his brother did. And he has this awareness that he might not live to be an old age. So he wants to accomplish as much as he can with his art. And he really believes also in doing like really important art that is meaningful.
With
and
that Scorpio fifth house, definitely.
Yeah. And filmmaker Ron Howard is quoted as saying, Jim Henson had the kind of internal sense that there wasn't going to be enough time. And whether that is because he lost an older brother who he loved very much, or the fragility of life, or innately he knew somehow that he might not live to be an old man. Who knows? In his
sorry to butt in. I also think that that's like very much like Pisces, Saturn retrograde, making the opposition to Neptune, like the feelings about like, I don't know how much time I have left. I feel like is very much there in that chart, especially with Saturn being the greatest malefic there.
And especially
that's very interesting.
When you think about how he died, he would have had more time if he had, timing wise, gone to the hospital sooner. In his early 20s, Henson is still a Christian Scientist and teaches Sunday school classes. And during the summer of 1958, he takes 6 weeks to tour Europe, intending to study the important art of painting and become a serious artist. But while traveling Europe, he learns that Europeans consider puppetry just as serious of an art form as painting and sculpture. And so when he returns to the US, he and Jane decide to start creating the Muppets Inc. They make a company. They institutionalize it. They establish it, and they decide to get married. And they ultimately get married in 1959, the next year, which is very ninth house Saturn of it all. There's so many ninth house things happening here.
Yeah.
He goes to Europe. He learns that puppetry is actually serious and important. He decides to make a company out of his puppetry, and he decides to get involved in the institution of marriage.
Yes.
Yeah. During the next 2 decades, Henson's Muppets appear in commercials and make guest appearances on network shows.
Sorry, I just realized one other thing. His 7th house ruler being in the 9th house, like kind of is like incorporating that partnership into a business.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
The business and the marriage of it all.
Yes.
During the next 2 decades, Henson's Muppets appear in commercials and make guest appearances on network shows. He envisions them as entertainment, not just for children, but for everybody. In 1961, Jane quits puppetry to raise their children. And this is a part where I'm just like, women, you are so important. Henson has to hire 2 people to replace Jane. So he has to hire writer Jerry Jewell and puppeteer Frank Oz to replace her. Again, it takes 2 men to do the job of 1 woman. Jane is the one who teaches Frank Oz to lip sync. And Frank Oz eventually would go on to be Yoda.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And also become an amazing filmmaker in his own right and direct a lot of amazing movies, but like the patriarchy of it, Jane quits this promising career to raise the kids, and the men who replace her, the children who replace her, go on to have these amazing career opportunities. Hurts my heart.
Yeah. Like what could have been for her if she didn't have to make a sacrifice like that.
So Frank Oz is a teenager who'd been performing at Children's Fairyland of Oakland. He would get hired by Jim Henson. He would eventually be the performer behind Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Animal, Sam Eagle, The Cookie Monster, Bert, and Grover. And in 1980, he would be hired by George Lucas to perform as Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back when Henson is too busy to accept the role. And
oh, interesting.
Yeah. So George Lucas is like, hey, Jim Henson, do you want to be this green alien? And Jim Henson's like, thanks. Awesome. I am super busy right now. Hire Frank. But that could have been like, hire Jane. In another universe without the patriarchy.
Jane could have been Yoda.
I know. And then we could all be like looking up to, female
Yoda.
Yeah, I know. In 1969, Henson's team is asked to work full time on a children's program for public television called Sesame Street. And the success of Sesame Street allows Henson to stop working on commercials, and he's glad to not do that anymore. Carol Spinney, who would be Big Bird, remembered that Henson would never say, in a very Libra vibe of Henson's, he would never say when he didn't like something. He would always just kind of go, and that lets you know that, okay, it wasn't quite up to Jim Henson's snuff. But if he liked something, he would say, lovely. This is just such a Venus and Libra man. Henson.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Henson recognized that Kermit, in some ways, is his alter ego, because Kermit would say a lot of things that Jim Henson could never say. And the Muppets would appear in their first feature film in 1979, The Muppet Movie, which would make $65.2 million and be the 61st highest grossing film of all time.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Other TV shows that Henson would make include The Muppet Show, Fraggle Rock, Muppet Babies, and other films, including The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. And Henson's daughter says that her dad rarely got sick, and his son says he did not like going to the doctors. On May 4th, 1990, 12 days before his death, Henson appeared with Kermit on the Arsenio Hall show in Los Angeles. He just returned from Disney World in Florida, which I do have a chart for that, May 3rd, 1990. And by the way, Florida, if you remember, is the state where his brother died. And I didn't do the astrocartography of any of this, but if you're an astrocartographer out there, see what's going on with Florida in Jim Henson's chart. So he just returned from Disney World, where he went with his team. They filmed some things. They were also working on the Disney deal. He'd picked up a little bit of a flu, and he seemed on the show kind of tired and a little bit out of breath. You can watch the clip. I'll leave a link to the clip from the Arsenio Hall show in the show notes. And there is a sort of like breathlessness to the way that he talks and everything. And he said to his publicist after the taping that he was tired and out of breath, but assured his publicist that it would go away. Henson pushes through, visiting antique stores and then flying to New York City to work on the Disney deal and some Muppet projects. A week later, on the morning of May 12th, Henson and his daughter fly to North Carolina to visit his father and stepmother. And when they land in Norfolk, Virginia, a little after 10 a.m., he isn't feeling well again. He has no fever, but his throat is sore. His nose is running, and he has a slight cough, but he carries his own bags, and he drives the rental car 70 miles to rural Saukey, North Carolina. They spend...
Never heard of that place as a North Carolinian. I don't know where that is.
It's very rural. It's spelled Ahoskie, if I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. You're probably doing good.
With his family in North Carolina, they spend the rest of the Saturday playing croquet, drinking iced tea, chatting, having a good time. They hang out on the porch. They watch the sun go down. Henson's a little sniffly. And when pressed, he says he just doesn't feel good, which is honestly the most anyone has ever heard him complain about his health in their life. And the next day, Henson actually sleeps until nearly noon, and he doesn't feel like eating. He takes an Advil. His cousin, a doctor, tells Henson to go see a doctor the minute he's back in New York City. His cough gets worse. Sometimes he's rasping so violently he coughs up blood, but he actually keeps that to himself because he doesn't want to worry his family. A big Venus in Libra, like, I don't want to cause trouble with my family, my fourth
especially in the fourth house. Yeah.
No one suspects that Henson is in the early stages of pneumonia. He swaps his 9:45 p.m. flight for an earlier one back to New York City on Sunday. But while at the airport, his daughter notices he looks more tired than usual. I am such an empath.
I'm clearing my throat now. I'm like,
I'm feeling like
I'm developing an infection in my throat.
I know. I'm like, so Henson swaps his 9:45 flight for an earlier one back to NYC. While at the airport, his doctor notices he looks more tired than usual. And he's like, I'm just tired. And he does his little like, hi ho, Kermit the Frog here. I didn't do that right. Let's do Kermit the Frog voice. Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here. He actually has a recording session scheduled for 10 a.m. the following morning. Instead of going straight to bed, though, which he said he was going to so he could prepare for the recording session tomorrow, his son, John, is at the apartment and is experimenting with a new Steadicam that he got. And Henson, he's like a gadgety guy. So he also wants to play with the Steadicam all night. The next day, Monday, he didn't get any sleep. He feels lousy. His voice is wrecked and he has trouble catching his breath. He cancels the Muppets on location recording, which he has never done before. And his coworkers are like, what's going on? He canceled. No one could ever remember in the history of working with Jim Henson, him ever calling in sick. That evening, Henson asks his wife, Jane, to come over. They've been separated since 1986, but they were still friends. She comes over. And at 2 a.m. in the morning, he starts coughing up blood and his abdomen hurts when he coughs. And Jane insists that they go to the hospital, but Henson says, just rub my back and try to calm down my breathing. At one point, he says, maybe I'm dying. And that's kind of something that like we've all said a little bit when we're like really sick.
Yeah.
Henson's daughter, Cheryl, calls her sister and tells her that she's really worried. By 4 a.m., Henson has real trouble breathing and his heart is racing. And he finally agrees to go to the hospital. But he's never gone to the hospital before. He doesn't even know how the hospital like works. And so his wife calls their business partner, Arthur Novel, who's like an assistant, like a fixer, like for celebrity people, like, let me solve your problems. He's out in San Francisco. And she's like, we have to go to the hospital, but we don't know how to go to the hospital. Like, how does that work? So this guy in San Francisco, this is Mercury retrograde, by the way. Remember? So he calls to get like a car company to come pick up Jim Henson. The guy at the car company brings a wheelchair, but Jim Henson doesn't want to like go out of the building in a wheelchair. So he like takes the elevator down, walking. He walks out the lobby. He waves hi to the doorman as he's leaving, walking. He doesn't use the wheelchair at all. And again, because they all aren't really familiar with the hospital, instead of going to the ER entrance, they get out of the car at the main hospital entrance and then have to walk a half a block to the emergency room. Again, not using the wheelchair. He's formally admitted Tuesday, May 15th at 4:58 a.m. I'm like, my throat chakra is like feeling this so much.
Oh.
His blood pressure is normal and he has no fever, but his heartbeat is so irregular and his initial blood work shows that his kidneys are failing. When he's examined at when he's examined at 6:30 a.m., he's suffering from severe pneumonia and kidney failure and is moved to the ICU where he slips into unconsciousness. By 8 a.m., Henson needs a breathing tube, and 2 hours later, doctors say he's not responding to any stimulation, no movement, no response, except when they put in deep pain, like with the little needle that they test.
Yeah.
Antibiotics have little effect at this point, and he would never regain consciousness. At 12:55 p.m., he goes into cardiac arrest. Doctors revive him, but according to his son, say if he were to be revived, he'd be the term they used back then is a vegetable. And by 11 p.m., Henson's blood pressure plunges and doctors perform CPR. He has a second cardiac arrest and doctors manage to revive him again. A larger chest tube is inserted and a second tube is inserted to drain his lungs. He's placed on a ventilator to increase oxygen. Just after 1 a.m., his blood pressure bottoms out. His heart has stopped beating. Doctors perform CPR and the chest tube immediately starts gushing blood and fluid, indicating that there's massive hemorrhaging in his chest and lungs. Doctors break out the defibrillator, increasing the charge and trying 4 times. Blood and fluid erupts through the tubes in his chest. Each time his body jerks and he's pronounced dead at 1:21 a.m. The doctors say that he just came in too late. 1 shot of penicillin much earlier would have solved the problem. Even an hour or 2 would have helped. And Frank Oz was the one who called the Sesame Workshop founder, Joan, to say Jim is dead. And she had trouble like staying on her feet. And she just remembers saying, kind of in grief and then anger, like, why, Jim, why didn't you just go to the hospital? Like, and I think the whole Henson community is kind of basically destroyed. Henson's attorneys almost immediately deliver a sealed envelope to Henson's children, dated March 2nd, 1986. These are letters that Henson had written during a weekend in France while mixing audio for Labyrinth. And it reads, "Today I am sitting here in the lovely room of La Colombe d'Or in St. Paul de Venice with lovely thoughts about life and thinking I should write this note sometime, also of death. I'm not afraid at all of the thought of death and in many ways look forward to it with much curiosity and interest. I'm looking forward to meeting up with some of my friends who've gone on ahead of me, and I will be waiting there to say hi to those of you who are still back here. Since I consider death a rather joyous step forward into the next stage of things, I'd like to lay out a few thoughts as to what might happen when I leave this place. I suggest you first have a nice, friendly little service of some kind, hopefully using the time. I'm going to cry. This is
literally like, why am I about to cry? I'm like, this is like so sad. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. And this is also like, so like Pisces 9th house. But I don't know, just said like Pisces Saturn in the 9th house, like such an optimistic sort of way of thinking about death, and like he's curious about it, like, oh my gosh, and just okay, so sad.
I'm gonna try and like not cry.
Okay,
I suggest
you got this.
Okay. I suggest you first have a nice, friendly little service of some kind, hopefully using the talents of some of the good people who have worked with me over the years. It would be nice if Richard Hunt, if he's still around, would talk and MC the thing. It would be lovely if some of the people who sing would do a song or two, some of which should be quite happy and joyful. It would be nice if some of my close friends would say a few nice, happy words about how much we enjoyed doing this stuff together. together. And it would be good to have some religious person read a few quotes by some of the great teachers to remind us how this is all part of what is meant to be. Incidentally, I'd love to have a Dixieland band play at this function and end with a rousing version of Saints. Have a wonderful time in life, everybody. It feels strange writing this kind of thing while I'm still alive, but it wouldn't be easy to do after I go. With all my love to you all, Jim. And 6,000 people came to his funeral. He wrote that, by the way, 4 years before he died.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'm going to cry. That's so sad.
And he has left a lasting legacy. After he died, Muppet's Christmas Carol was made without him, the first Muppet movie without him. And many argue that that's like the darkest Muppet movie, the darkest and most serious. And if you think about it, that's because of all of his coworkers are
like
mourning,
grieving. Yeah.
And
wow.
This is the transits of the moment that he died. And we have, it's just really remarkable, nearly exact conjunctions.
Right? That's just fascinating to me.
And, you know, his death chart had Aquarius rising and the ascendant conjunct the South Node in Aquarius. That's his 8th house. The South Node was transiting his 8th house, and the moon and the ascendant was transiting the 8th house when he died. The retrograde Mercury in his 4th house natally was being opposed by the debilitated Venus in his 10th house. The retrograde Mercury was going back and forth over his 11th house Uranus.
That Mars on top of the Saturn.
Yeah.
And then also the transiting Uranus over top of his moon definitely is kind of like
a big change.
A big change in mindset, probably.
Yeah, since the moon rules his 1st house, the moon is really like his body. So he's kind of being liberated from his body.
I have a cat joining me now.
Yeah. And so that is the story of Jim Henson. And because he seemed to have gotten sick on May 3rd, 1990, I thought I'd throw up the chart of May 3rd, 1990. Which is, and this is just a no houses chart.
Yeah.
This is right when retrograde Mercury is making a cazimi to the sun in Taurus, which is the 4th house of, it was his death chart was,
it's definitely like a problem that's going to be revealed once it's like out of the rays of the sun.
And Venus is at 29 degrees Pisces. So Venus is doing good. And then the next day it's going to be real bad.
Yeah.
And Pluto, we didn't even talk about how the retrograde Mercury is opposite Pluto.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And the moon, is opposite Mars.
It's like also like struggling to make a decision about like, should I take care of this sort of thing? But like beginning to pay attention to it also, like something is happening physically and, you know, we're trying to ignore it, but
yeah. And the Jupiter opposite Uranus, Jupiter just going into an opposition with Uranus. My religious beliefs, my ingrained religious beliefs, do I suddenly make a huge change and do something I've never done before?
Yeah. And he was a Capricorn moon natally. So it's like, he's a lot more, I don't know, like definitely there's a little bit of stubbornness here alongside the like not wanting to be a bother and just like, oh, I'm fine. I can handle it. Yeah. I've handled tough shit before. That's so sad.
That's the story of the life and death of Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets. And I've given you all lots of dates, lots of timestamps. So if you feel like on your own doing videos of the entire chart progression of how Jim Henson's sickness developed and looking through the chart at each of those timestamps, I welcome you.
Yes.
Like Emily has shown us all, you are more than welcome to take anything that I talk about in this podcast and run with it. Do your own thing with it. This is all about learning and spreading the knowledge and wisdom. Yay.
Yes.
So now we're going to wrap up our first episode. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that this was a great way to, especially like talking about the transits related to death, related to health and illness. I think that this was very informative, and also like, I'm excited I'm excited to see more charts and see like how we can get better at this, at like guess, like how I can like improve on guessing like what's going on in a chart based off of like just like reading more and like hearing more stories like this and like dissecting events like this astrologically. And also I love that you chose Jim Henson as a person to focus on for this first one, because I don't know, the Muppets were just like very significant to me growing up, especially like the Muppet movie is probably like, I think it's my number one favorite movie, like on my letterbox, like my top 4, like the Muppet movie is in there. So and also I don't think I knew a whole lot about him, and his upbringing and all of this. So this has been very informative and like interesting to learn about for sure.
Yeah, me as well. Muppets were very formative for me growing up. And I also didn't know much about Jim Henson's life. And it's really fascinating. Like you're a Gen Z, I'm a millennial. We come from 2 completely different generations.
Yeah.
We were both.
He still made an impact.
Yeah. We made an impact. And his legacy continues.
Yes.
And so this is the Astrology of Terrible Things. We have plenty more. I personally have 4 other charts that are ready to go. I've written the stories. I've written like 10,000 words of stories about these charts. So we're going to get to them. You have some charts. So stay tuned for future episodes. Definitely follow us on YouTube, because I'm going to do YouTube videos. This is our first one, and you can actually see the chart that we're talking about, which I think is very helpful. And follow Emily on TikTok, because Emily does these very short Astrology of Terrible Things TikTok videos, which are very fascinating. And that's Emily Simile, Emily spelled with an IE on TikTok.
Yes.
And you can follow us at the Astrology of Terrible Things on Instagram, all one word. We have like no followers. I haven't posted anything on there, but trust me, eventually something's going to happen with it. Just make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next episode. Until next time, don't freak out when terrible things happen. They're meant to be.
Yeah. Stay terrible.
Part of life. Bye.
Bye.